Just the Thought Podcast. We are back. Your co-host Tim Tech is in the building. Your host Ray Swaby is in the building. Hey guys, we have a special guest, Jessica Lewis, the co-founder of Rise Up Queens and Rise Up Kings, which was also built alongside your husband Skylar. Shout out to Skylar. Guys, these two platforms, you can find them on Instagram, Facebook, YouTube. They also have a website, right? Rise Up Queens. I think you guys have an event coming up soon on July 9th, right?
Yep.
So if you guys want to check out live events, go to Rise Up Queens website. But I'm not finished yet, right? So Rise Up Queens, Mrs. Jessica Lewis. Guys, her mission is for men and women to come together, right? To learn about how to be a better leader in a relationship, also to heal from their past traumas, and also to give them tips on spirituality and how to grow spiritually in a relationship. But we're going to have Jessica go more into detail with that. Jess, it is a pleasure to have you on the show. Welcome.
Thank you so much. Excited to be here. Excited to get into this today.
Yes. So, Jess, I have a couple questions. So we talked a little bit off air. I told you how I got in contact with your page. I was scrolling through Instagram, the Reels, and I came across this video that I want you to explain to me. So your video on how you emasculated your ex-husband. Mm-hmm. I want to ask you what happened, and can you break down that video to us?
100%. So when I was getting a divorce from my first husband, the thing that he said to me was, well, I was never good enough for you anyways. And that struck to the core, because I was like, wait a second. I thought this was all your fault. I've been blaming you this whole time. And he had this feeling this entire time. And so as I became divorced, I reflected and realized that I was in self-preservation in my relationship. I had learned to never rely on a man, and how that showed up was me being controlling. So I lived in fear constantly. So I had a lot of emotional immaturity. So I got a lot of backlash on those posts or on those videos. And a lot of it was from angry men that have experienced that. But I honestly wasn't conscious that I was doing those things and how it would affect my relationship. So I operated in fear and showed up controlling. I was always critical, but I wasn't just critical of him. Perfection was my standard for me also. And so I just thought that's how I was supposed to be. That's how I could get love. I decided early on in life that if I was going to get love, I was going to be perfect. And so but doing that in a relationship, creating an environment where he felt like he could never win. There was nothing that he was going to do was ever going to be good enough. And so I had to take a big step back and say, okay, how could I be more effective? But it started with me beginning to heal some of the things of my past, because no man had ever modeled what great male leadership was. And I watched my mom not rely on my dad, right? So I learned that trusting a man wasn't something I should do even.
I think that's so important. I mean, one of the things that I love that you said was emotional maturity and kind of taking a step back and realizing you had to heal yourself. I think a lot of people, when they get into any relationship, whether it be dating or marriage, we have emotional hidden triggers that we don't even know what they are. And then it's like a landmine. When somebody steps on it, you blow up on them. I had to learn that many different times, whether it be in family, romantically, or in friendships. And I think it's so great because a lot of the times we're just like, oh, well, like your ex-husband said, I was never good enough. That's almost like a cry for help. There's been plenty of times in my relationship where I have to sit back and be like, hey, like, I'm pointing the finger at you, but like, let me take that time to say, am I making you feel emotionally secure? Am I actually hearing what you're saying? Am I hearing to respond, or am I hearing to accept? So the fact that you're even saying this and understanding just the amount of people that were, coming at you, for lack of better words, and you were able to say, let me not just push back. Let me hear what they're saying and reflect on myself, and eventually it made you stronger.
I love what you said with the landmine, because it's so easy with when our landmines or our triggers get hit, which we all have them. Our first instinct is to protect, but then to go outward and to blame the other person, that it's their fault that this happened. Well, they did this. And yes, they might be part of that equation of when the trigger happened. However, my response is my responsibility, I believe. So you can trigger something in me, but how I then choose to respond, I'm either going to take responsibility or I'm going to blame you for my poor behavior. But I truly believe that my response is my responsibility for sure.
How long did it take you to realize that you were wrong and you needed to be accountable for what you did?
Well, it's not like patterns of being just go away. It took a lot of work and patience with my now current husband. So I've been married 15 years now, and I knew I wanted him to be the leader of our house, but I'm a strong woman. And so even though I knew that intellectually, it was another thing actually living it out and letting down my guard. I remember we have had a couple businesses, and I was stepping out of one of the businesses, and I was like, okay, I'm going to be a stay-at-home mom. But instantly I started a coaching company and started working with people, started bringing in income. And we were at an event, and I was like, wait a minute, like, I'm really good at this, but I don't love this. I was like, why am I doing this? I was like, oh, I don't trust him yet. It felt like me completely relying on him to me and my nervous system was going to be death. Like, that's how intense the feeling was for me to rely on him to 100% provide for our family and me to not have an additional source of income coming in. And so it has been a slow progression. And so I'm a big believer of investing in myself. And that's why we run events now, because I've gone to events or worked with coaches and worked with people I still do it to this day, even though we've been married 15 years, because those tendencies aren't easy to break, but I'm able to come to them a lot faster now, and then come to like apologizing and admitting like, hey, that was ineffective. Can you forgive me, babe?
Just, I think you're saying so much great things, right? Is it Rihanna? We got Rihanna joining us.
Yeah, we got
Hello.
Rihanna. Yes, return guest. Rihanna, welcome to the show.
So
Thank you
just
for
to
having me.
Absolutely. Just to kind of reiterate what's been going on, Jessica Lewis, co-founder of Rise Up Kings and Queens, she's given us some perspective. Had a post kind of go viral a little bit about emasculating your husband. And she's just walking us through emotional maturity, intelligence, and what she's learned from her first marriage to her second. And one thing that I want to ask you is, you talk about still being able to learn those different tendencies and work on those when you have maybe arguments or just things come up. And you talked about the event just now and not being able to trust. When we go back to that word emasculate, I feel like that word has been thrown around so much in our society that it gives a negative connotation everywhere, up and down. And what I mean by that is, a couple of my peers were talking, and this guy was like to the girl, like, oh, you're trying to emasculate me. And she was like, no, I'm just trying to like help you out. I was like, no, I'm the leader. And right then and there, I pulled him aside and I was like, real leaders don't need to say that they're the leader. If you are a leader, sometimes the best way to lead is to actually listen to the person who you either love or trust the most to gain guidance. And I feel like that's so hard with men. Have you seen that in the role that you're in? Is it hard for even men who work for you or who are quote unquote under you to kind of take that leadership from you as a woman?
I think for whether it's male or female, feedback often, and that's what I would experience that as, like, she was trying to say, hey, I'm being helpful. Feedback is extremely difficult for most people because we've learned to get our identity and our sense of self-worth from what other people think and feel about us, or from whether we're doing a great job or not doing a great job. So I think it's not even gender specific. And as a woman, the delivery of that feedback matters tremendously. I could tell my husband just last night. So I have asked him, if there are no dishes in the sink, hey babe, can you please put your dish in the dishwasher? And this guy, for the last 2 days, has not set his dink in the dishwasher, but he set it on the side of the counter. And I'm like, the old me would have been like, are you serious? Can you not just help me around the house? Like, I would have gone to complaining and blaming and nagging at him. And he instantly would have shut down or fought back. So instead, I learned to ask him in a feminine way and draw him in and invite him in rather than going to criticize, nag. And I was like, you know what? You're cute. I'm like, you think I don't see you? I see this dish right here. I know what you're doing. And I gave him a little wink and made it fun. And we laughed about it. And he got the same message. He was able to hear, hey, can you please put it in the sink? But it brought us closer together versus pulling us further apart. And I think that's where some women are very naive to how to communicate with their husbands. They think that they can be boss babe in the marketplace, and then those same skills of get it done, achieve, make it happen, drive it forward works when they come home. But that's what begins to create an environment where a man will feel emasculated and like he might have to puff up, right? That was him trying to say, well, one, it might have been him taking feedback poorly or her poor delivery, but the woman controls so much of the environment in the delivery.
Riaana, you want to add something?
Yeah, I think there were so many interesting points. I think especially when you talked about it not being gender specific, because I think if you take out men and women, we're just talking about ego. And I think in a lot of modern relationships, there's more ego than anything else, you know. And also, you know, the point about, you know, saying, oh, you know, giving the wink and saying, oh, could you just put it in the dishwasher? Oh, you're cute. I think there's a point where that stops being funny, you know. And I think for me personally, it gets to a point where I can't live with you. Like if this is not the standard that we're setting, I can't do it, you know. But I think again, I think you're right about the way you say it, and you know, wanting to be a boss babe in the home and at work. I get that, and I think sometimes as women, if you adopt a very masculine energy, I think you can push a man away, and I do agree with that. But yeah, I think you also have to have standards and limits. And I'm willing to put those very firmly, because at the end of the day, then you sort of could turn into the woman that is constantly trying to, you know, appease and say things in a nice way, but actually you're living in hell.
I love what you said, Riaana. So boundaries definitely would be important to that. And I would push back just slightly. So my husband asked me, he was like, hey, babe, when I ask you to have sex with me, can you be a little bit more enthusiastic? Because I take it personal.
Yeah.
And I was like, I thought about it. I was like, hey, wait, why don't I? I was like, yeah, yes, I will. But you know what? I'm like, when you ask me sometimes, I am not there. I'm just not in that place and I am somewhere else. And then what happens is like 10 minutes later, I'm like, okay. You know, the first answer is like, I don't know. And then 10 minutes later, I'm like, I can see this happening. And then maybe 30 minutes later, I'm like, okay, you know, and it continues to grow. And so I was like, yes, I will. I'll begin to work on it. And then literally not 30 minutes later, we're in the car driving and he looks at me and he says, hey, babe, I'd love to connect with you. And my mind literally went blank. I was like, oh, crap. I know I'm supposed to say something right now. And it was not in my consciousness to grab. So I was like, hey, it wasn't like I was like, oh, I'm supposed to say this and I'm not going to say it. But it just wasn't in my neural pathway in my brain as a response yet. And I was like, oh my gosh. I'm like, I know I'm supposed to say something. Hold on. I'm like, okay, yes. And then I'm like, oh, and it came to me minutes later. And I was like, okay, like, can I do that again? And I'm like, yes, I'd like to. And then I was like, hold on, I'll do one even better. Can we pull over right now? Right. Yeah. And so when you go to this place of, I can't live without you, I get it that there needs to be, or I can't live with you anymore. I get it. There has to be boundaries. And man, sometimes like I used to believe that my husband was supposed to be like me and just couldn't understand when he couldn't do what I wanted him to do. It didn't make any sense because something that was so easy for me was extremely difficult for him. And when you said ego in the beginning, I had a huge ego thinking that if it's easy for me, it's supposed to be easy for him. But what if we struggle with that, like that exact scenario just described, for the rest of our marriage? But not because of lack of desire, but just because we are two differently wired people.
Right.
So I love. Oh my God, this is such a great topic because again, me and my wife, we have these conversations and we have them with our friends, we have them with ourselves. And one day, I think it was maybe like a month ago, she goes, "Is the version of me now the version of me you fell in love with?"
Mm.
And I was just like, "That's a great question because the version of me is going to constantly change." And one thing about me is I have to separate how I speak to my friends, to my employees, to my wife. And I catch myself sometimes. You guys talked about the dish. That's always a constant thing, right? Like, hey, I need you to do this. If you don't do this, you're not helping me. And at first, I'm like, oh man, come on, what am I doing? But I've done this. You start picking and choosing what you've done in order to make up for the fact that you still are not doing that, right? So the conversation that really helped was when she asked, is this the version? I told her, I said, no, it's not. But the great thing about it is I can learn to love you in each version because each version can present something new that makes me say, wow, this is the evolution of our love. This is the evolution of you. And I feel like sometimes people are afraid to evolve because you may think that person is the same, but that was 10 years ago. That was 7 years ago. That was 2 weeks ago. We are allowed to grow. And sometimes that growth may be uncomfortable and it may feel weird and it may challenge your perspective. But I also think that that's beauty because if you're not growing, complacency kills. And I think that especially in any relationship or career path or whatever journey, I stress this a lot when I talk to people. I say, what are you afraid of most? Are you afraid that it's hard? Are you afraid that like it won't be what you're used to? But are you afraid that it may come with success? Because if you don't change, you're just going to be stalemate, right? So I think that conversation was important when she asked me, and we were able to build off that.
Okay, yeah. I appreciate you for sharing that. Jess, I wanna ask you before we move on. Can you explain to us the two ways to diagnose emasculation? Emasculation. Two ways to diagnose.
So if you're looking at it from, if a female's looking in and wondering, may have I created an environment where my spouse or my boyfriend or my husband feels emasculated? You would look for, is he just apathetic? Is he doing the minimum? Is he not showing up? Am I creating an environment where he can win? So there's more than two ways. Or has he gotten to this place of why try? Because you're so critical and nothing is ever good enough and you're never pleased. Right? I believe men innately want to be the provider, the protector, the knight in shining armor, and want to show up in that way. But they will stop in something as small as, we talked about it at one of my last events, something as small as redoing the dishwasher, right? Or letting them parent the way that they parent. You are two completely different people. And do you let them be their unique self, or are you expecting them to fit into this little box of what you want, somehow as if what you want is best or better?
I redo the dishwasher.
Let me tell you something. I personally have learned in my life that
Go ahead.
when you talk about like sex, and I rarely will talk about this, but I think it's a great platform. My wife goes, that like I will just be so in the mood. I'm like, what? Buy you chocolates, massage you, what? If you do the laundry. I was like, what? Do the laundry. She was like, yeah, you go up and do the laundry. If you clean the dishes, if the dogs are walked, and everything is taken care of, right? And I was like, I watched the video on it. At first, I'm laughing. I'm like, yeah. But I realized sex is so much more than physical. Obviously, it's an emotional state. You got to be in an emotional state. There's a lot of things every day that we deal with that sometimes we're not just either in the mood or we're not just there. We're not present. And one thing that we have adopted, and I do this with my friends, is if I feel like I need to talk to them or anybody, I'll say, I need 2 minutes of undivided attention. I just need 2 minutes of you just listening to me. You don't even have to respond. I just want you to be present to receive what I'm saying. And we do that. Me, my friends, my family, we do it. And because we want to be heard, everybody wants to be heard. Everybody wants to feel like that person next to them is receiving the information and not just brushing them off. And I feel like being heard can be more than just talking. It can be like, hey, is it about that one dish? No, it's about you realizing that that one dish can turn into 7 dishes. That 7 dishes can turn into a week of dishes. And now my spouse and myself is taking on an everyday struggle along with the struggle at home. That's supposed to be your safe haven. But again, that comes with emotional maturity. Those dishes, that mess, that's real life. If you could take care of home, they say this, they say, if you can make your bed, you've already accomplished one thing when you wake up. That's something that's already done and it's fixed. So I think your home is one of those things where you want it to be a safe haven. So it's not really just about the dish. It's about creating a safe space that's inside, because we have so much to deal with on the outside, whether it be politics or stress or work.
I love what you said. Oh, go ahead, Ray.
No, go ahead. I was just saying that's facts. Go ahead.
I love what you said too, because that dish, what happens is there's an internal dialogue that gets created. I have two things from what you said. There's an internal dialogue that gets created, because if I've asked over and over and over again, hey, can you put the dish in the dishwasher? Oftentimes the story that begins running in my brain is, you don't care about me. You don't prioritize me. You don't care what I care about. And what that does is that creates everyday emotional disconnection. And then and then the spouse wants to connect physically. I'm like, wait a second, but you won't even hear me, see me, help me here. Why should I show up with you? And it begins to create this environment of conditional love. And what I found to be true is so what I heard your wife say is, the way you pursue me and the way that I feel desired is when you show up for me in the everyday. Other wives might say, or other women might say, I want some physical touch from you, or I want you to get me gifts, right? So you'd have to know their love language, but she just gave you the key to helping her warm up, because for some reason, I believe God designed men to just be ready instantaneously, always, most of the time. And women need a little warm up. And most of the time there's a stalemate in relationships because each person is waiting for the other person to make that first move. But I've found that, and maybe you guys can speak to this, that men have a need to be pursued as well. And so some of my conversations with women are, hey, I get that you're not going to feel like doing this. Sometimes you're not going to feel like connecting intimately, but he's not going to feel like listening to you for 30 minutes on the couch either sometimes, or helping with things. And if you expect him to show up, are you willing to lean in the same way and create a give and take in the relationship? Or do you only choose to move when your needs are met first? And that will create massive disconnection.
Yeah. Yes, I agree. And while we're on the topic, do you think it's important for a person, before they get into a relationship, do you think it's important to know that other person's love language? Do you think that's a question that we should ask before we get into a relationship?
100%, I would say yes. And when I read there's a book, right? The 5 love languages. When I read it, I realized that I was giving the love language I wanted to receive. So that's just an indicator right there. If someone checks in, they don't even have to read the book. If they check into how they like to love other people, that is often what they want to receive. And with the caveat that women are oftentimes more emotional. So there's more highs, more lows, more changes. So one day I might say, hey, babe, can you rub my arm? The next day, don't touch my arm. And then the next day you can touch it a little bit, but the next day don't touch it. And so my husband is someone who looks for a formula and wants to be extremely efficient, and he'll just run that formula over and over again. Well, guess what? He's not married to a man. He's married to a woman with emotions and highs and lows and changes and things that are different. And so to Tim's point earlier, yes, check in when you're dating, but then once you're together, that love language might change as this person continues to evolve. And so you'll want to need to check in. You'll want to check in. Am I in relationship with this current version? And is what I'm doing landing? We got into an argument one time, and to solve it, my husband, or we solved it. And then he brought me 2 sets of roses. He walked in the door. I'm like, babe, that's so sweet. But I only need 1. The second one does absolutely nothing for me. There's no added benefit for the second one. You don't need to get it. And so if you're loving someone, whether you're dating or married, are you looking to make sure that that love you think you're giving, are they actually feeling that? Is it landing the way you want it to? And oftentimes people aren't checking. They just check the box and say, you know what, I showed up. I invested in my marriage, or I invested in the relationship, and the other person actually isn't feeling loved.
Yes, thank you for sharing that. That is 100% facts. I wanna go to our next point. We kind of already are talking about our next point, dating in 2025, right? I want to read you guys something, and I want your opinion on it. All right. So, today people are only dating for confidence and status. If you are vulnerable, they see you as needy and less attractive. What do you guys say to that?
Ooh. I would definitely say that a lot of people are more time dating to boost their ego. I think we're not looking skin deep. I think we're doing it very much based on attraction. Obviously, the main source of dating is, apps like Tinder, Bumble. I don't know what you have in the US, but I think it's very much a buffet selection table. So nothing is special. You go to a buffet, you might go up for that one dish, but there's just so much you can't even, realize what is the best dish. So I feel like, nowadays, if you are someone who's very clear about what you want and you're probably looking for something a bit more meaningful, there's a lot of situationships out there. I feel that, you have a problem. Because if you do express that you want to be in a relationship, or you express that you're not looking to just hook up, it could be quite problematic for you in today's society.
Can I read you something? I'm going to read you something
Go ahead.
to go along with that. I'm not going to
Go
say
ahead.
this person's name, but this is what dating is like, apparently. I took a girl on a date a couple weeks ago, and when I sat down, she said, "What are your interests? What are you here for?" He goes, "Well, I'm still trying to figure it out. I found you attractive and I felt like we had some chemistry." Okay, but if you're not ready to get married, then I feel like I'm wasting my time. He goes, "Well, I feel like we should probably get to know each other." No. She goes, "Yeah, but I've dealt with men before who only wanted to play games. Is that you?" And he asked me a question. He goes, I don't even know how to disarm that. And I said, "Well, first off, that time bomb is ticking. And whatever you say is going to set it off. So I think the best thing what I would have done is be like, why do you feel that way? What has happened in the past to lead you?" See, a lot of the times I feel like what I'm hearing is people are not healed. Jessica, you mentioned it. People are bringing that baggage from one relationship to the other, and they want you to carry it before you even know what the weight is. So now I'm lifting something that I don't even know how heavy it is. And if I can't lift it, then I'll just let you down. When in reality, if you had just taken out some of that weight and came a little bit healed, maybe, just maybe, we could have worked that out. And that goes both ways. It's not just gender specific. That's anybody, right? So I think a lot of the times in the dating world, it's more than just it's validation, but people want to be taken care of without actually putting in the effort to take care of them themselves. So it's like you're shifting the accountability, and you want to be fixed without giving the proper tools. So that's my perspective on
it. Jess, what do you think?
I think that society has somehow created, well, I mean, not somehow, but through kind of this boss babe movement, this alpha female movement, and glorifying that is this great thing. And then through even movies, even you think about The Incredibles, about this great woman and then this sloppy dude. Like, we've seen it over and over again where females are superior. And so if women have begun to evolve, there's this call to men now to begin to step up, right? And create a space where the woman doesn't have to do everything on her own. And so she said, yeah, I've dealt with men before. Exactly what you said, Tim. I hear hurt in that. there is pain in that, and people have let her down. And so that's on females to check in. Are my standards too high? Am I looking? I've heard that they expect perfection in a man and there's no room to grow. But then I've also heard on one side that men that are dating now are a little bit more passive and that aren't stepping up, not as pushy men or overly strong men, but just grounded and solid, and they know who they are and can hold space for a woman with everything she has going on. So you described a man, Tim, that can hold space, and tell me more about that. That would versus just uncertain and unwavering and hasn't dealt with anything himself. And so I think it's a call to men of this generation to begin to mature emotionally and get strong on what they believe in and what they stand for and who they are.
I have something to say. And do you think because of what we're seeing now with women being, in this way of like, I'm a boss, I'm Miss Independent, I don't need a man to tell me what to do. Do you think that's because of the history of what men have done to women in terms as meaning like cheating has been a thing since the beginning of time. You've seen women date these men that have been abusive, right? You see a lot of baby mothers, right? Do you think men should take some accountability of the behavior of what's going on with women today?
It's a hard question. Good question. So in my personal opinion, it's an invitation for men to begin to step up. It's why we built Rise Up Queens. Some men do not know how to be grounded, godly leaders of their homes. And so we are teaching them how to be grounded in their faith, apologize for what they need to apologize for, be faithful, control their lust, have self-control, invest in their families, and not just expect that when they walk in the door that the house is clean and there's a hot meal.
Riaana, I have a question for you real quick. I know you are in Europe. Where you are in London?
Spain.
I'm from London,
Spain?
but I'm living in Spain, Barcelona,
Still in Spain.
What is it? What's the biggest difference? Because in America, we are a hot mess. We know that we're running around eating buffets instead of picking selected meals and all this other stuff. And Jessica talked about it, like men not knowing how to step up. And a lot of the times I find out the bare minimum is sometimes set because it changes over time. First, like we want somebody who's emotionally in tune. Then we want to do with six figures who can blow a bag on us. What do you see the girlies out there where you're from? What are you saying? What do you want?
Well, first of all, I'm going to say what I think is expected. And I've heard so many different points of view, but a lot of women say, if a guy doesn't drive, I'm not going to date him, which, for me is quite ridiculous. Is, if you drive, why would a guy? So I think there's a lot of male roles or female roles that still play a huge part. But I'm going to say that I think in Spain, because I'm going to talk about Spain because that's been my experience for the last 7 years. A lot of them are very family oriented, but that means also mums are very, should I say, attached. So there's not that level of emotional maturity that I would see in the UK, for example, because obviously in the UK, we go to university earlier, we live alone earlier. And in Spain, people are more or less staying at home. They don't really travel out for university. For me personally, do you say what I want in terms of dating, or what is it that the specific question?
So specifically in dating, you're talking about your non-negotiables, the expectations that you have and boundaries. What are those for you? Do you feel like those changed over time? Like,
I feel like now I'm 32, so I'm just kind of like, be straight up. But I'm not saying that, you have to tell me that you want to get married tomorrow. And I'm not saying that we have to have the conversation of what are we in 2 months, but, let's not play games. Don't sell dreams. And then after, do the exact opposite. And people are allowed to change their minds. But I think when you're going through that process, you must know how you feel. So I think the problem is in today's space is that there's a lot of game playing and actually my current boyfriend, we've been together for 2 years, very happy. We're about to move in together. We want to create a family. We want to get married before doing that. you know, we want to do things all in the right way. But he said to me on the first date, he said, by the way, I'm not looking for anything serious. And we both had quite toxic relationships before meeting each other. So we were both in that space of, oof, no, you know, we're not trusting people. And that was how it is. And I really respected that. You know, he didn't have time for games. And I think that's probably what brought us closer together, if I'm honest, because we were just ourselves from day one, the first day. So yeah, I think for me,
can I be honest? Can I be honest? As a guy, this is gonna. I hope this is a sound bite that gets some traction. I believe a guy knows if he wants to be with you forever in the first 10 minutes. I seriously believe that. I've spoken to, and maybe not like logistically forever, but I believe when a guy's like, "Oh, I'm not looking for anything serious," they either know after that date or in the first 10 minutes of speaking with you, their guard is let down, and we can literally envision a life with you. I'm not saying how that's gonna go, but I think and I feel based off of just speaking to so many different men that we know. Look at Ray. Ray probably knew right away. He was like, no, this is going to be my forever, right? And it may change.
Yes.
But I'm serious. I really do think that by him saying that, maybe he was just saying that, and now he's like, no, this is a person that I can genuinely see spending the rest of my life with. You know what I mean? And I think that just changes based off of disarming.
Yeah.
Tim, that's so crazy because Skylar knew, my husband's name is Skylar. Skylar knew with me. I was just at dinner with a couple this weekend and we heard their story. That guy knew, and we have a close friend to us who just met a girl and he said, I knew. So I literally have, so just 3 right there with just thinking of it off the bat of men saying that, women not saying that so much.
It's crazy. It's so crazy because men will try to be like, oh, we don't know. Oh, we're just trying to figure it out. I think the funniest thing is, again, I'm probably gonna get a lot of flack for this. People who've been dating for long periods of time, go at your own pace. If you want to get married, great. If you don't, God bless. My thing is, I'm still waiting to see. Sir, it's been 5 years. What are we doing? The science project and the research project is done. You've collected all the evidence. You've gone through all the ups and downs. At this point, it's just about putting the logistics behind it and going through. But it's just funny to me because I speak to so many different guys. And like you said, they'd be like, I knew she was the one. Yeah, we do. We really do. We're just trying to decide whether or not we're willing to go through.
For whether exactly. Yeah. We know is what Tim was saying. We know. We're just trying to see if if she got if she's got working with everything. But we know off the bat. Maybe it's that first day or it's that second day, but we know what we want.
Sorry.
Go ahead.
Just ask a question because from a male perspective, I really want to know this. Does it matter if a woman is making a certain amount of money or if she has a certain career? Is that fundamental in the relationship? Because I don't know, do you feel a pressure to provide? Because we're talking about 2025, where now they're saying that women are starting to make even more than men and men are, falling down. So I just want to know if that's a factor for you when dating.
I'm not great. Can I answer this real quick?
You go first.
Because it costs so much living in America, but you have men, right, who are quote unquote traditional and they don't want their women to lift their finger. That may fit their lifestyle. That's a conversation that they've had. The problem is that a man will be willing to do anything and everything for you if it is not an expectation set. Like, oh my God, like you have to do this. I need this. It's kind of like when you walk into a room and you're like, okay, well, I need this done, this done. It's like, it's all about how you present it. Some men will jump at the opportunity to, and some may feel a little insecure. So you're going to get a little difference just based off of how you grew up, what type of financial background you have or setting you're in. I think it just depends, but communication is key. But yeah, you do have a lot of dudes that might feel like, oh my God, you make a lot of money, but then they start thinking, how can I be of service if I can't financially provide? Because that has been the expectation set on men from day one. Financial security. Literally back in the day, it's like, how much does he make? Oh, he's going to be able to provide for you. But that's thinking that the wife wants to be a stay-at-home mom. In this day and age, we could both bring something to the table and it's our business. I think that's important. Social media will have you out here thinking that you need to do X, Y, and Z when half of that is fake. And I've learned that the best way to do it is speak to your partner. There's no such thing as 50-50. I think that is the most toxic conversation of all time. And it's misleading because not every day is going to be 50-50. Hell, shit, not every day is going to be 100%. It might be 70-30. It might be 80-20. But I think if you're willing to at least to give 100% of what you can, I think that's what's going to be the difference maker. So to your point, to answer that, I think it's a mix, but there are more men willing to provide if it's not forced upon them right away.
Interesting.
Yeah, I kind of agree with Tim. Actually, most of the things he said, I agree with. For me, it's not that important, right? You make more money than me, that's great. Don't brag about it. Don't floss it in my face like, oh, babe, I just got this bonus. He just hooked me up with, $2,000 extra. That's great. Just don't brag to me about it. And also, I want you to be comfortable making a lot of money. Don't feel like, oh, because I make more money, I need to support him. I need to be his mom. I already have a mom. I don't need another one. All right. So like, I respect you if you make money. That is great. Just don't brag to me about it. I'm happy for you, but when it gets to a point where it starts to become an issue, then we have a problem. But if you're okay with that, I'm okay with it. Seriously. Yes, I would have to agree. Let me ask this, guys, because I want to move on to a different topic. All right. Nowadays we are starting to see more women and men too become friends with their exes, right? Or have multiple friends from different genders, right? You're starting to see women have multiple guy friends, and you're starting to see men have multiple girlfriends. Some people are saying that is okay. Some people are saying no. What are your opinions about that? Tim, I want to start with you.
I actually want to hear Jessica's point real quick. I want to, because I see that great mind churning. I want to hear
All right. Okay, let's go. Let's go, Jess.
I mean, I might have an unpopular opinion about this one, but we've took the stance that we don't have good friendships and relationships outside of our marriage. So I don't have a great guy friend, and there's hard boundaries. Like, I'm not going to lunch with a guy without my husband there, because there's this amazing book called The Subtle Art of Falling in Love, and it talks about how affairs happen. And oftentimes affairs don't happen intentionally, they happen unintentionally as emotional connection is built. And so if I'm connecting with another man and sharing emotional things, sharing my life with him, and he is there to be, and he's present and there, maybe sometimes in the way that my husband can't be, I will naturally begin to be drawn closer to him. And those are the beginning ways that chemicals fire in my brain that eventually create love. I don't believe that we fall in love on purpose. I believe we often fall in love on accident. And it just happens as a nature in God's design of our brains and our bodies to create connection. And so affairs often don't happen on accident, or they don't happen on purpose. I believe they happen on accident. Oftentimes when we go and get this need met in the other sex unintentionally. And so we have had the stance that we don't have outside people of the opposite sex that we're close with, that we're talking to all the time, so that we can give all of ourselves to our significant other.
Go ahead,
I
Tim.
think that was a great response, and I think that was super mature and intellectual. And I'm not even going to follow up with that part because you did a great job. I'm going to just go to the level of being like, people don't even know how to be great regular friends. What do you mean you have a guy friend, a girlfriend outside of your relationship? What does that look like? When I ask somebody, because I have these conversations, I used to do a podcast, and that was one of the things. Can you be friends with your exes? For what? What is it that we can get from a friendship that we didn't get intimately if it didn't work? And some people might be like, oh, well, just because it didn't work intimately. I personally can't do it. Once I'm intimate with you on that level, we really can't be friends, because there's always going to be in the back of our minds some sort of connection. And like you said, Jessica, it's just hovering around. But then it becomes the idea of boundaries, right? What do those boundaries look like? Are we friends that talk all the time? Is that friend okay with my spouse? That's another thing. How does your spouse feel about it? How does your partner feel about it? Because if they're not okay with it, then the conversation should really be done, right? It's not, should be like, well, they're my friend, they've been my, it's different, right? If you've been friends for a while, bring that into the relationship. But to be broken up with somebody and still have that ex around, why? What are we doing? I've heard it all. I don't want to close a bridge. I don't want to burn a bridge. I don't want to, leave that door shut. No, shut the door, burn the bridge. Once I take the trash out, I don't go back and check on the trash. And maybe they feel the same way about me too. Doesn't mean I hate them. That just means that there was a reason why this didn't work. I'm not seeking anything else. I wish you good luck. Everything that I have for my new partner or in the future, I want to put towards them. I don't want to keep going back, because how does it look like if I get into an argument with my spouse? Am I going to talk about that with my ex? What type of friendship do we have? There's so many questions and so many taboo topics that are just in the gray area that I feel like if it's got to be that gray, just what are we doing? And I think once you get married or you're in a relationship, to me, it's better to have couples friends. Not to saying if you already have single friends, that's fine. But if you're looking for that, it's a little tougher. It's a little harder to navigate.
Yeah. I mean, I agree with what you say, just on the basis of context. Because for me, if I have a male friend that I was already friends with before I met my current partner, but nothing happened, I feel like if he wasn't okay with that, that would speak about trust. And I feel like if there's no trust, there's no relationship. And whether or not I have male friends or not, he, I might do something anyway, or he might do something anyway. I definitely can say that I won't, I think. No. I would like to think I trust myself and I trust my partner implicitly. But I think exes are a hard no, because I feel like that's disrespectful to your partner. However, I do think if the friendships were there before the relationship, I don't think that you should eliminate that for your partner, because I think there's a thin line between control and healthy boundaries. But I think, again, it has to be a conversation. Like in all relationships, it needs communication and it needs understanding from both sides. So, yeah.
Can I ask you this real quick to combat that? Like, what if that partner says, it just makes me feel uncomfortable? Do you stop? Do you have more of a conversation with it? Because a lot of times I feel like we are shamed in thinking that we say, I feel uncomfortable, it makes us look weak, or it makes us look jealous or controlling. But in all reality, sometimes we just don't feel comfortable. What would you respond if your partner's like, listen, Riaana, like, I don't feel comfortable with this. It just, I've thought about it. I know we've talked about it. What then?
It's hard to say, because I think with my partner, if he was really uncomfortable, it would really be because it was the way the guy was acting or something he said to me. It would be off that more than, so, okay, I just feel uncomfortable with it. Whereas I feel like maybe in other relationships I've had, it would just be, because you're a good looking girl. So maybe, there's a threat. So I think it's like I said, there's sometimes a thin line between jealousy, control, and then, sometimes those sort of controlling behaviors depends on what you've seen, if you've seen abusive relationships growing up, you start to question things a bit more. But if my partner said to me, I'm uncomfortable with this relationship, as we're heading towards, living together and we're thinking about marrying each other, I would have to take that into consideration, because if I'm trying to move forward with somebody, why is it necessary, or having a lifetime with someone actually, then I'd have to reconsider it a lot more than if we're just dating,
I love it. Yeah, I was hoping you were going to hit on that, Riaana. Like, as the relationship continues, what if it was just, well, I want all of you, all of that, the excitement you have when they call, or the things that you share. I want to be that man in your life for you, and I don't want to share you with anyone else, is what was coming up for me as you were talking. And so, yeah, maybe that's not when we're just dating conversation, but as we get more serious, is there a willingness?
I have one more topic, because I know we all got things we got to do. So I have one more topic for you guys, and actually, this is more towards. I know Rihanna's in a relationship, but for the people that are married, Tim and Jess, this is more for you guys. So Jess, this is questions for you, and then Tim, I got a question for you. What is your advice for a woman that is entering a long relationship and looking to potentially get married? What advice would you give to that woman, and what ways should they go about being in a long, successful relationship with their partner?
I can speak to one killer that happens in relationships often is unconscious and unmet expectations. So oftentimes we have, whether it's male or female, we have expectations and we aren't aware of some of those expectations. A simple one was the trash with me and my husband. I expected the trash to be taken out when it was a little bit full. He thought the trash should be taken out when it was overflowing. And so I would get frustrated that the trash wasn't taken out. He's like, I'm so confused. I take out the trash. What are you talking about? And it was we hadn't spoken about the expectation, so I was getting frustrated. So anytime someone's in a relationship, there are always going to be triggers. There are going to be miscommunications, but the one way to navigate through that is whenever you're frustrated, checking in, do I have an expectation around this? Because oftentimes all frustrations will lead back to an unmet expectation. And we say when we're in events that expectations aren't valid unless they're conscious, they're spoken, they're agreed upon, and they're attainable. Like that is actually something that someone can do. And so if someone's looking to get married and be in a relationship, getting clear ahead of time on what do we do I expect you to make the money? Do I want to stay home? How are we going to raise our children? What is this going to look like? And I'd add just one more thing. I think the greatest thing that I did before getting married the second time was going through premarital counseling. You're never going to marry a perfect person. But in our premarital counseling, 2 weeks before we got married, our person said, you have an opportunity right now to share every single thing that you are holding on to, any secret that you're holding on to, because secrets in a marriage, in a long-term marriage, will take energy and take space up, and it'll inhibit you from being the best version of yourself in this marriage. And it was at that 2-week mark that my husband shared with me that he was unfaithful to me, even after he had committed to me. And so I was able to go into our marriage knowing exactly who I was in relationship with. We both exposed every single secret that we are doing. And so maybe it's not premarital counseling, but it is some form of you knowing, so that he said, I want you to do this so you never have the excuse, well, I didn't know you. And so many people get divorced saying, well, I thought I married somebody else. I didn't know you. And you can prevent that from happening so much. I have one more thought, Ray. And even if you do know them, in both marriages, I've gotten to the point where I felt like I cannot do this. I can't do it. It's too hard. And unknowingly, I had this belief that marriage was meant to make me happy. And what I've discovered is that even through my husband being unfaithful to me, through him struggling with porn, that God was growing me in each of those instances. I could have easily quit and given up, but going through that with him taught me how to love someone unconditionally, how to love someone when I didn't deserve, when I didn't think he deserved to be loved. Because up until that point, I was extremely conditional and selfish in the relationship. Those were 3 points for you. Go ahead, Tim.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Go ahead, Tim.
Well, first off, don't want to just skip over that. That was amazing. Like truly being able to hear that, and that I'm speechless. Ray, is it the same question just for men?
Yeah, it's the same question, man. Same question.
The advice I would give, I guess a guy or a man who's looking to get married is absolutely premarital counseling and therapy. But also, why do you want to get married? Are you doing it to appease your significant other? Are you doing it because it's something that you saw growing up? Are you doing it for yourself? You know, at the end of the day, marriage is hard. You don't stay in love forever. You have to learn how to love each other again. That passion is very important, but also learning how to work towards it, and then focus on your marriage, right? Once you get married, focus on your marriage. Don't just rush into other things. Don't rush into just having kids if you don't want to. Don't rush into, doing something for somebody else. When you get married, that's you and that person taking a journey and understanding that journey is going to be tough. But I'm a big believer of fighting. If there's days that you feel like you can't give it your all, just show up and fight. I'll fight with you. And I believe that as long as you are willing to fight for something, for this, then I'm going to continue to fight. And it may not be pretty, it may not be perfect, but at least I know that I can look across from you every day and be like, you are willing to fight for this. And as long as you are, I am too. So my advice is to keep fighting, find a fighter, learn how to fight, whether it be in your marriage and your everyday, and don't give up, as cliche as that sounds, because once you do, it's really pretty much clipped.
I appreciate that. And Riaana, what about you? I know you're not married, but you're on your path to. What do you think? What about you? What do you think about what is the steps of going in towards longevity in a relationship? What are some things you need to do, or what are some things that are goals what are some goals you desire for your long relationship?
I think communication is the biggest one. Respect, because I think we talk a lot about communication, but respect is so important. If I have an argument with my partner, I'm not calling him anything but his name, and we're talking about the issue at hand. And we're not talking about what you did last week or 2 months ago. We're talking about, okay, what is going on here? And it's always a conversation. I grew up in a home that was a bit shouty. So, for me, it's very important to have that respect and to have that communication. Also, life goals. If I'm living in Spain and if I have a plan to go back to London, then I'm leaving my partner in the dark. Also, I think it's what you said, Tim, about, is it not pressuring? Because I said to him, I would never marry you if I thought that I was pushing you to do it. I'm not going to be leaving wedding magazines out on the coffee table, when are you going to ask me? We've talked about it and everything, and it's all about logistics. It's about when are we getting there? So I think that, especially as a woman, you need to not ask your partner when are you going to marry me? Because it's never going to come from here. So yeah, I definitely think that's the most important. Respect and making sure you're on the same page.
I appreciate you guys. Well, Jessica, it was a pleasure having you on the show. Guys, again, Jessica Lewis, guys, co-founder of Rise Up Queens and Rise Up Kings. Guys, go check her website out where you can find live events. There's a live event happening July 9th if you are in the Dallas area. I think it's for people in the Dallas, right? In the Texas area.
People fly from across the country always.
Okay. All right.
I will be there. I will be there.
July 9th. Yes. July 9th through July 11th. All right. There's more details on her website, Rise Up Queens. And guys, also you can go find her on Facebook, YouTube, Instagram. All right. Rise Up Queens, Rise Up Kings. Jessica Lewis, the co-founder. Jessica, thank you so much for coming on the show. This is Just a Thought Podcast. Riaana, thank you so much. Tim, my co-host, we are out, guys.